Thank you for inviting Flowgear back to the IT Forum. We have presented here before, and I think from the upside of the previous presentation, I'm looking at the attendance list over here, and I can see a growing number of Bidvest companies that are currently using Flowgear's integration services. Also, a quick shout out to Bidvest Advisory Services, who is a Flowgear partner and a certified implementation partner who resell Flowgear services, as well as implement those services for a number of Bidvest companies as well as other companies. So the purpose of today's session is to introduce or reintroduce Flowgear's no-code integration platform and demonstrate how we can help unlock value within your respective businesses. And ultimately, what I'd like to leave you with is this question around, if your systems could speak to each other, what problem would you solve first? So to answer that question, I've got a quick agenda here today. So I'm going to run the first session, which is we're going to look at what is Flowgear, with whom do we compete, and how do we differentiate in the market. We'll also look at Flowgear's commercial fit and pricing model. Then I'm going to jump into very quickly some real-world use cases where Flowgear's managed to solve problems for existing clients, and also to discuss a special offering that we've got for Bidvest companies in today's session, as well as complementary proof of concepts. I'm then going to hand over to a colleague of mine, Terence, who's going to actually walk you through a integration. So Terence has put something together, and you'll be able to see how Flowgear builds out these integrations actually on the platform. And then lastly, I'm going to hand over to Pashni, our marketing director. And Pashni is going to be chatting to Bidvest Noonan to see how they're using Flowgear to transform their business. And if we've got some time at the end of that, we can open up to a Q&A. All right, so what is Flowgear? Who do we compete with, and how do we differentiate? So Flowgear's middleware platform enables businesses of all sizes really to shed the workload and complexity of both data and app-to-app integration quickly and affordably. The platform enables Bidvest companies, or all companies, without writing any code, or low code if that's your preference, to integrate with any application, service, API, or database. So whether you're trying to integrate your internal systems, or maybe upstream to your suppliers or downstream to your customers, you can achieve all of this through the Flowgear platform. And we do this is achieved through a large ecosystem of pre-built application and technology connectors, which provide instant integrations into thousands of SaaS and on-premise applications. And if you look at the technology connectors that we got, some of which are on the screen, we essentially have hundreds of these which cover all your mainstream CRM, ERP, e-commerce, and financial systems. And really what you'll see in the demo that Terence is going to do is these connectors really wrap third-party APIs and visually service all the objects and fields and functionality that one would need to work with in terms of working with that third-party application. Also, where we don't have a pre-built connector, we use our generic technology connectors to connect into anything which has an API, SDK, database, desktop application. So effectively, any piece of technology that is designed to ingress or egress data, Flowgear has the means to connect with that system. Also important to note that each Flowgear subscription includes the tooling for you to build your own connectors. So if there's a system that you particularly want to build a connector for, you can build it, or Flowgear's team can actually build it for you. So the idea is, once we've integrated these multiple systems together, and again, as I said, they can be cloud-based systems or on-prem systems, the next step is to visually build out workflows to pass data between these systems to automate a process or facilitate a transaction. Now, this is where the true value of Flowgear is derived. So integration is really plumbing, but what the platform gives you is this blank canvas and powerful rules engine to build workflows that determine how, when, and in what context your data should be used to automate processes and solve real-world business objectives. And these objectives should either increase revenue, reduce cost, or create a significant competitive advantage within your industry. So it's a very high-level overview of who Flowgear is. What I quickly want to talk about on this slide is where Flowgear fits in terms of integration tooling. So we look at tooling in terms of 3 levels. At a very entry level, you got citizen integration tools. These are tools like Zapier or IFT. Great tools, but does what it says on the box, but you very quickly come up in terms of its limitations if you need to connect multiple systems, custom things, and very large volumes. In the middle layer, you've got hand coding, which is what everybody's desperately trying to move away from. Problem with hand coding, it's very brittle, integrates endpoints at a point in time as those systems update. So the hand coding tends to deprecate and eventually will break. Also places huge reliance on key man dependency. Now, at the top end of integration, you've got these platforms which give you this blank canvas. That's where Flowgear fits in. And at the top end of platforms, Gartner has a category called iPaaS, Integration Platform as a Service. They recognize approximately 35 iPaaS vendors globally, and also very proud to say that Flowgear is the only recognized South African iPaaS vendor. Now, to date, iPaaS has almost exclusively only been available to your very large US enterprise customers, and this has really been a function of price. So if you look at some of the players in the space, MuleSoft, Albumi, Jitterbit, SnapLogic, Celico, pricing starts at north of $30,000 per month. And where Flowgear has managed to differentiate is we're the only iPaaS company to take this enterprise technology and make it available to the South African market at both a scalable and affordable price point. So to give you some color on this, Flowgear's got 4 fixed price subscriptions. We got the base plan at 9975 per month, scale into our enterprise plan at 115,000 Rand a month. And this is the fixed price per month on a 12-month contract and gives you access to all of Flowgear's connectors. So there are no variable costs when it comes to Flowgear. You pick the plan that gives you the right amount of active workflows, which we can delve into more detail in another session. You contract with Flowgear for the subscription. And it's this blend of best of breed technology and return on investment that has created this enormous synergy between Flowgear, our partners, and our clients. So previously, I spoke about if your systems could talk to each other, what problem would you solve first? So on this slide, I just want to try and give you a profile of give you an idea of Flowgear by osmosis in terms of some use cases. So these are some of the use cases where we solve problems for either finance department or warehousing and logistics for some of our CISPRO customers. So in the finance department, this is achieved through triggering invoices from a CRM system or intercompany consolidation, the ability to integrate CISPRO with a client supplier or trade portal where they can view statements in real time, as well as EDI invoices to third-party vendors. On warehousing and logistics, some of the examples where we've solved problems is real-time inventory visibility, which is a huge problem within warehousing and logistics. Then also the ability to sync supplier shipments confirmations from logistic tools to auto-generate GRNs in CISPRO.
Listen to this.
Cycle account variance handling, so automatically log and flag inventory discrepancies from your warehouse management system into CISPRO for reconciliation, and then API integration for couriers. Sorry, I think I've got somebody's mic on.
Yes, I am looking for that person. I'm sorry. And whoever's talking with their mic on, can they please mute?
No problem.
Thank you.
All right, so guys, the last thing I want to touch on before we get to the demo over here is a special offer that's available to Bidvest. So any Bidvest company which takes a Flowgear subscription before the end of the year, we're happy to offer a 15% discount on that first year subscription. We're also happy to offer a 100% complimentary proof of concept. So if you do have an integration automation use case, speak to us. We will build out that complimentary POC. So in the interest of time, I'm going to stop here. I'm going to hand over to a colleague of mine, Terence, Terence is one of our integration engineers, and he's going to walk you through a use case of where we're going to integrate supplier PDFs to CISPRO orders, not using any templates and with no manual entry. So thank you very much. Terence, I'm going to stop sharing and hand over to you.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Ant. So here I have a presentation on the PDF to CISPRO. We have the PDF in front of us on which I will be training the model. What we can see here is Flowgear Farms is going to be selling citrus to Johnson Bicycles because can't have a cycle race without some fresh citrus. The big power of it is the no code, low code. So I'd like to show the training process is so much simpler. If you were to open up Flowgear from your own homepage and you went over to the worklet templates, you can see we have a template available for you. And it's as simple as filling in the different connections. You would need a OpenAI connection and a PDF to pass. For the interest of time, I've already run through this process. So here you can see the same workflow. And what I've done is I've read in the PDF we saw from earlier. And the first step, we will create a schema. The schema will be our template. And here you can see an example of what it looks like. We're just using the JSON schema. And here's all the different fields that the assistant will try to find within your PDF and populate them. What's nice is this is an editable field. So you can remove any values you don't want, that maybe you're not interested in the payment terms or, I don't know, the sales tax or something like that. You can remove those fields and you can just keep the fields you want to streamline the process. This is all JSON, so it's really just a case of removing fields or adding different fields that you would like. We then take that schema and the document and we pass it into create validation script. This is a very important step for where the document parser becomes a lot more powerful. Because this validation script, it will automatically create it, and it will be a C# script that you, again, can edit if you're not interested in all the different fields. But this will now have the power to validate your past data so that if, for whatever reason, GPT were to hallucinate the values, or if a human error crept in, the validation script will be able to pick it up. I would like to first show an example of where it actually went wrong, where we have an invoice here and the user forgot to update the totals. Here we can see we have a line item over $2,000, but our grand total is only up to 700. So we pass. It's very similar to the first workflow where we pull in the document. We just read it from either, in this case, it's from my computer, but you can read it from an FTP, pass it in any way. And then here we have our schema from the previous workflow that I showed, as well as the validation script. I've brought them down a bit because we are just interested in these fields. I can show it as a visual. These fields, not all the other fields as well. So save some time there. And we also have the validation script, which I can't see. There we go. And the validation script, which validates each line as well as the total at the end to make sure that all the values were filled in correctly. And what we can see here is we have a nice big error saying the subtotal does not match the sum of the line totals. We expected over 6,000 and you got 600. So that is a failed example. If we switch over to a successful one, same process, same schema, but in this case, it was a valid PDF. All the totals were correct. And here we can see we received the data out, each line item on its own line, and with the line totals. We then take that JSON payload, we pass it into our flagship quick map node, which we use to pass to a sales order for Syspro. And we also convert it into XML at the same time. Here we've mapped out all the different fields and added the date. This gets mapped and then passed to Syspro. Here we can see the completed item. This is now in XML, which the quick map did for us. And that was processed. Our response is successful. So we've now taken a PDF and put it into Syspro without any code. We didn't have to train the model. It was merely 2 nodes that we ran. And now we can switch over to MCP. This has now been set up in Flowgear, and we've set up different tools that are available. And I've just asked it now if it can check if we have any new orders today. And if it does find any, please will it email them to me as well. I'm going to open up my email on the side here. While this loads, I don't know if Dan's available still. Maybe talk through the MCP process. What you have to do on the first run, you always have to confirm that the tools are allowed to be called. So that you don't have...
Just, let's add a little color to the 2 scenarios here. So kind of the bigger picture, just going back to the PDFs, is, a lot of businesses do need to work with PDFs. Your supplier might send you an invoice, for example, like that. And PDF parsing itself is nothing new. But until now, the approach that you've had to use is to grab that PDF document and then manually label all of the components in it, which means that when your supplier changes the layout of their document, it tends to break your process. So there's a lot of kind of manual upfront setup, and then there's no good way to validate the way that the data is being ingested. And really, for the first time, using a tool like ChatGPT gives us a way to kind of blast through that configuration step. So what Terence has shown you there is a new connector that we have in the platform that will kind of do a one-shot configuration. So you can literally feed it one example of a document. It'll do 2 things. One is understand the structure of the document, and then custom build a script that will validate the data that it's interpreted out of the document. So, and it will do all of this itself. You're not doing any of this by hand. So for example, if it sees that the document is an invoice, it's going to try and figure out a way to confirm the total on the line by taking, quantity multiplied by unit price. And then similarly, it'll check that the total of the document is the sum of all of the lines and many other things. It'll do, things around the precision on quantities based on the unit of measure, that sort of thing. So the point is that you can give it kind of a one-shot, a single example, and configure it for repeat use in the platform with a very robust way to detect whether there's been a failure, because you certainly don't want to import it if you don't have high confidence that it's been correctly interpreted. So, in all integrations, ideally, if you can go API to API, that is first prize. But I'm sure you have a lot of suppliers, customers, partners who don't do that. Any case that you're working with a document, whether it arrives over an email inbox or an FTP folder, this gives you a way to ingest those documents, even if the volume on those documents each month is so low that previously it wasn't worth the configuration effort. So what this changes is you're negating the configuration effort, and this suddenly makes it worth it to import hundreds of different types of documents. It actually makes it cost efficient to do that, and you can trust that when they're ingested, they're reliable. And then the second aspect is something that we've released more recently is, if you're following what's happening with AI, the big unlock that happened a couple of years back is the notion of tool invokes, tool calls. So instead of just producing content based on a request, the AI can invoke a tool that you make available to it. And MCP is kind of the leading protocol that describes how tools should be presented to AI. So you can kind of think of MCP as an API for AI. And so what we're demonstrating here is that any Flowgear workflow can be published as an MCP tool. And by connecting it up to your favorite AI assistant like ChatGPT here, you can get it to perform really, really complex invokes. So the prompt that Terence gave it here was asking around Syspro orders. We had a tool that is pre-configured to return information around SysPro orders. But you can create any number of tools, and it will agentically determine which set of tools should be run to help the user with their query. And I think it's also important to mention that a lot of times these are not kind of one-shot quick in and out. These are things that you're going to leave running for a minute or two, and they're very much going to replicate the way that you would work on a task manually. So what we're seeing in the scenarios that we're building out is we create a bunch of tools that allow agents like ChatGPT to query different data points inside an organization. The ERP is obviously a super important one. And often we don't create opinionated tools. So what we create is the ability to understand the list of all of the tables that are available in the ERP, the fields in the table, and then some information on how to query it. And it can agentically and kind of recursively build queries that build on the information it had from previous results. And so over a period of 10 or 20 queries can get deeper into the data that you need. And we think there's huge potential for this in business. So from an integration perspective, it's a way to very informally start to drill into your data and unpack it in a way that is extremely time saving. It's something that you wouldn't have to do, where you would normally go through these tasks by hand across many different screens, many different systems, and AI is able to stitch that together for you. And did you want to jump in there?
Yeah, just at the risk of cutting off our CEO, and I just want to, I know we only had 30 minutes, Dan. So,
yeah, I think we're finished here.
Okay, if we can pass over to Pashni and Bidvest Noonan. I'm going to, Pash, if you want to jump in, that will be a great time to segue into that discussion.
Thank you. Thanks, Anthony, Dan, and Terence. I see, is Toman online?
I am, Pashmi, how are you?
Good, and you? So the benefit for the rest of the Bidvest companies online, Bidvest Noonan is a service facilities and security company that has a vast network across the UK. They were relatively new clients of Flowgear. I actually think it's 3 months, Toman, which is fantastic. I'm going to ask you a couple of questions for the benefit of the rest of the companies online to just understand your integration journey with us. I'm quite certain that you had completed due diligence with our competitors prior to arriving to Flowgear. What ultimately tipped us or tipped the scales in our favor, should I say?
Well, we had an integration platform already. We used Azure Logic Apps. However, after we went live with it, we found it was very manual. We had to do a lot of development in that to keep it up to date and to make changes to it. So there's a lot of Python development in that to create our own function apps. So that was the wrong application for us. So we did go to the market, and a lot of those names that were put up in the previous slide, we did proof of concepts with. And largely all the tech stack was the same and the functionality was the same. And 8 days before we were due to sign with one of them, Renier from the Alice team set up a introductory call with Flowgear. And we had used Flowgear through the Alice platform, but we'd no idea about the integration capabilities. And when we saw what it could do on the demo, we were just blown away. And literally within 8 days, we had a proof of concept. So we had 2 proof of concepts set up with the team, largely self-delivered by our own IT team. And yeah, we decided to sign because it was all the functionality we required.
Wow. 8 days is quite impressive. I think when I chatted to you earlier in the week, you said to me you went live within 4 weeks, and you had received as part of the proposals and your due diligence a 300-day consultancy estimate. So I just want to ask you, based on that, what do you think made that speed possible? Because it was quite quick. I mean, you've only been on the platform for 3 months. We've seen you have quite a few workflows already. Over 100 workflows that's already been completed.
Yeah, it's the 300-day consultancy was a joke when we received it. Like the company we bought used a platform called Salesforce, which everyone knows, and everyone thinks obviously big money Salesforce. So they obviously tried to skin us. So it did help the business case when we went to the exec to say we needed a different platform and we didn't want to use consultants. We wanted to self-deliver. because most of the time when you're working with consultants, from my experience, you're spending all your time transferring your own knowledge into them so they can do the work. So by bypassing the consultants, because there's a time saving there, there's also a cost saving. You're able to do the work yourself. So our solutions team were able to do the vast majority of the integration themselves. We have to reach out once or twice to support. Flowgear support are top notch. Literally within the hour, we will get a response from them. And yeah, within 4 weeks, we had the guts of 12 to 14 use cases set up, tested, signed off, and ready to go live.
Wow. So your internal team now currently handles 90% of your integration. How has that changed the way the IT department collaborates and operates with business?
Well, they get to spend a lot more time with them, because in previous, for the last 12 months, we've been doing a lot of integration and a lot of system integration. They've been tied up with that. They've been tied up with mapping. They've been tied up with workshops, discoveries, process flows, things like that. But now, because we can actually do what used to be the hard part really quickly, they can actually spend more time with the business and actually figure out better ways of doing things rather than just mapping the as is.
Okay, brilliant. So when we chatted previously, you said to me, you've integrated Salesforce with Aggresso. And how has that integration changed the visibility and efficiency across the Bidvest Noonan group?
Well, with that one integration, what we've been able to do is we've been able to put in a lot more controls. So we use an awful lot of filters, so bad data doesn't even enter the system. Whereas in the past, from historical integration, it's been easier for bad data to enter the system. So it means we can use Flowgear to stop it through filters, alerts through emails and through Teams chats to the people who are actually entering the data, and they can actually, as soon as they hit save on something, they can get a Teams message that pops up and says, "You've missed the field, go fix it." And it means then they're not chasing IT for saying this hasn't passed through. They've been told what hasn't passed through and how to fix it.
Wow, I love that. That's quite a change. You mentioned you do have different applications and technologies within the environment that you are planning to integrate. What's the next steps for Flowgear within Bidvest Noonan?
Well, all our current system providers have basically given us end of life warnings for all our on-premise systems. So within 18 months, all our systems, 6 major systems, will all be in the cloud. 2 are already in there, and we're currently mobilizing the others. So we're just going to be literally plugging in all the systems, defining new master data sources, and Flowgear allows us to do that really quickly. So we can define the employee master data source and immediately plug that into all the other systems, and then define what transfers, when it transfers, what updates, what directions it update in, etc. It really, you've seen a very quick demo on the screen there. Like if you can conceive the process flow in your head, which I think most of us can because we understand our systems really, really well, you can design it. It really is that simple.
I love it. So, Toman, there's quite a few other CTOs on the call from the rest of the Bidvest companies. They obviously are challenged with regards to automation and any integration. What advice would you give them based on your experience with Flowgear?
We were blown away with how quickly we could implement solutions, right? So in the past, working with different partners, it was taking us months, 4 to 6 months to do integrations, proper integrations. We're doing that in 4 to 6 weeks now with full tests. The platform is so user friendly to allow you to do dev, UAT, and test, and very quickly bring changes through the various 3 environments, to get people to sign off on things. And after you go live, there's always the odd glitch, and rather having to rely on third parties to fix them, we can fix them ourselves in seconds, because as I said, we all know our processes, we all know our systems. So we go, oh yeah, that field should have been here, or maybe we will stop this flow and move it on. So from a functionality point of view, as I said, if you can conceive the flow, you largely can design it. From an information security point of view, you guys spun up our instance in Azure North Europe. So for us, that was really good because from a GDPR perspective, we are compliant. Yeah, listen, it's been a great partnership so far. The support, let me just tell Stephanie and Nick, shout out to both of those because they're top tier people that we're, as I said, we've 90% done most of the flows ourselves. The odd time you kind of run into a brick wall and you ask a question and they answer you so quickly, and you kind of look at it and go, oh yeah, why didn't we think of that? So it's been a great tool to use.
Toman, thanks so much. I appreciate the feedback. I'm glad Dan was able to join us on the call. It's his team. So he will definitely take the feedback back.